My name is Ben, and I've been working at Global Sources for the last 8 years, managing a lot of helping the manufacturers get into distribution through distributors and retailers worldwide. Who here have heard about Global Sources before? Okay, this part of the room here is more. Now, who here has heard about Global Sources now? That should be everybody. Take a picture. It's good for PR. All right, good. So today, I'm here to talk a little bit about what we do at Global Sources, but really share the experience about what we've learned by helping with, we've helped quite a few startups that have been looking for the ability to scale and did not have the resources available in the market. And we found this little nice gap for us at Global Sources because traditionally, Global Sources, we are a 45-year-old company. We're listed on the on the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, GSOL, in case you want to invest. Over the last 45 years, we've accrued about 1 million plus global buyers. On our platform, online or offline, top 100 retailers, 95 of the top 100 retailers are actively using our platform. Now, we started 45 years ago in Japan. We moved with the Industrial Revolution of Asia. We moved to Korea. We were here in Taiwan. If you didn't know, we also helped Acer back in the day. We then moved to Hong Kong, and now we're in China. But in the last 2.5 years, what we've been doing is helping hardware startups. And right now, we've already helped 450 hardware startups. And as Stephanie mentioned earlier, we run a show twice a year, and we've grown from 38 startups when we started 2 years ago to 191 startups just this past April. And we've got some pretty crazy success stories. One of them is Nanoleaf. Have you guys heard of Nanoleaf? Great. Nanoleaf is a Toronto-based LED company. They moved to China to start their manufacturing with their little origami-shaped light bulb that they were selling for $50 in the market. A little bit expensive. But it was still really unique because they had a very strong team. They had a really great vision of bringing green technology to market, and they were invested by Kleiner Perkins. They were invested by Horizon Ventures, aka Li Ka-sheng. They started with our show 2 years ago, and what they found at our show was they were trying to sell it at a retail of $50, but the FOB price was about $25. And at $25, all the distributors at our show and every retailer at our show laughed at them. And does anyone know why? Exactly. There was absolutely no margin because in the market, unfortunately, in retail, in distribution, it's still a little bit traditional, right? The distributors and retailers still work on a keystone markup, which I'll explain in a little bit. But over time, what they've done as a very good team, they've introduced new markets, introduced new products to new markets, and over time they've come up with the Aurora. Aurora was just introduced just a few months ago, and now having met Winit, which is the US largest consumer electronics distributor, they're now in 800 Best Buy stores and 100 Apple stores. And for a lot of hardware startups, especially in consumer products, that's a big win, right? Especially at the beginning of what your product could be in the future and what it means for your other products in the pipeline. Another company is called MakeBlock. Have you heard of MakeBlock? Out of Shenzhen. Shenzhen, they were part of a hacks accelerator program, and their first kind of outlet to get into distribution was again through our show. And when they came in, their product was so unique. They had good margins built in. They had a very niche market, and they're now in 46 countries. And more recently, Moveit. How about Moveit? Probably just a few, they were on Indiegogo. They did really well on Indiegogo. And it's an IoT gym. That device over here, on the very left side, you basically can stack a bunch of exercise equipment. It's connected to your phone, and you can challenge people with your push-ups, your jump ropes. I have it. A lot of people kick my ass on the push-up machine, but I'm still working towards 25 push-ups at once. But regardless, these guys came in a year ago to our show, and what they realized was their price point was a little bit high, but because Again, they met Winnet at our show, and Winnet told them that they needed to improve the quality of their product because it was still a little bit rough coming out of the tool. And they fixed that problem. The product is a little bit more polished, and now they're testing their product in Best Buy Canada. So after kind of experiencing all the challenges that all these hardware startups have gone through, we've kind of seen like common denominators. And people have always asked, as a hardware startup, how do I get my product to scale? Yeah, obviously you need to start looking at your product in itself. But what I try to tell a lot of the hardware startups is start reverse engineering your price. And then when you start doing that, you'll start realizing what you need to put together to get yourself into sales at scale. So we found 5 secret ingredients, and to be honest, it's not really a secret ingredient. It really is just your experience and time focus on distribution at an earlier stage. So point number 1. Has anyone ever heard of Crossing the Chasm, 1991 book, right? It still holds true today. I was reading it about 3 months ago, and I was reading the profile of people at each stage, and it still holds true today. So if we take a look at, as a hardware startup, should you be looking at going to retail right off the bat after crowdfunding? Good luck. Only a few could really do that. It's really rare, right? And why is that? If you, with Ben and with Indiegogo, if you're trying to tap into the early adopters, and these early adopters are the guys that are going to troll you a little bit. They want to be the first people to have new technology. They want to be the first people to get that discount on that new technology. They're right here. They're the innovators, and they're the early adopters. And you can touch base with these guys on crowdfunding platforms or niche online websites, a little bit tech savvy. And they're going to represent at a max 10% of consumer spending. Max. Probably a little bit less. But where does 90% of consumer spending happen? And that happens on the back end here. But how do you cross that chasm? Right? Does anyone know? I mean, my favorite story is ask your parents here if they would buy a 3D printer online. Right? Probably not. Because they're going, why do I need a 3D printer? It's probably for my kids. They're printing all these gadgets that I don't understand. They're printing guns, right? But if you brought your parents to a store and a sales representative goes, hey, with this 3D printer, you can print out toys. Just download them from the internet, print out toys for your grandkids. You don't have to go out to Toys R Us and buy toys anymore. Now, maybe they won't buy, but they're now thinking about potentially buying. But that's the education process of communicating what your product is to the early majority. You need specialty stores to help you do that. You need to have the right distributors in the market to help you do that and educate the market. Because if not, you're going to be stuck right here. Because the early mass just doesn't understand your product. Now, okay, let's give you another example. Have you heard of a product called NextPack out of Germany? You have one. Okay, so NextPack is a modular phone case. Okay, it's a phone case that has these little modules that you put in. You can have a little barometer in there. You can test your blood if you're diabetic. But how are you going to communicate that in a store? If you put that phone case next to other phone cases for $200, you're like, man, that's an expensive OtterBox, right? But that's the reality of it. No one's there to teach you. Again, if you're not educated that was a modular box phone case, you're right here. You're stuck here. So you do need to understand that when you're distributing your product into retail, it's not straight shoot into Target. It's not straight shoot to Best Buy. There is this stage where you need to educate the early majority. Okay? That's number one. Number two, price correctly. How many people here are in the process of manufacturing the product? All right, 1, 2, great. And have you figured out your MSRP? I think, Pebby, you just said $300 earlier, right? You've figured out your MSRP? Oh, perfect. Perfect. That's exactly what you need. This is a keystone markup. In distribution, they use the word keystone markup because if you go to a show, let's say you go to a trade show, they're going to say, hey, what's your MSRP price? $100. they're expecting $5. And this is running out of battery. But so if they're asking you for your MSRP, automatically the distributor is dividing by 4, and they want that Keystone FOB price. Thank you. And it's really tough for a lot of hardware startups because they don't think about distribution yet, or they don't reverse engineer pricing and go to a manufacturer that I need to make this product at $25 or less. Right? Now, to be honest with you, this is Keystone markup, which means it's probably not realistic. This is ideal. So just remember this. A distributor is typically looking for 40 to 50% markup, and a retailer is looking for 50 to 70% markup. Okay? So you work those numbers, and you can generally negotiate based on that. So that is your pricing. So FOB, we all know what FOB means. Times it by 4, that's what your retailer is going to sell it at. Number 3, show a well-planned marketing. Show a well-planned marketing plan. That's a little bit redundant. Offline. So really, it's called the get to the 3-foot rule. And that means when a customer is 3 feet away from your product, can you convert them? Right? And that's really much, a lot of it is offline. So communication to your customers via a display. What do I mean by that? Similar to what I mentioned before. If you have shelf space, how are you going to communicate what your product is, especially if it's a new type of product in the market, a new type of category that you're already creating? Number 2, packaging is super important. Have anyone gone through a packaging process for retailers here? Venture face, yes, Peter. It is just horrible, this whole process, because every retailer has their own packaging requirements. Some of them will say they need a Euro hole. A Euro hole is the one where you hang it on the wall. Some of them will say, okay, you need to have a package that sits on a shelf. Some of them will say you need to have a package and then have your product sit on top of the package. It just goes on and on and on and again. So you need to work with a packaging expert to tell you what variations of packaging do you have and what can you offer. Because at a trade show, when you're talking to buyers, you need to show that. Because they're going to say, yes, that communicates what that product is when it's on the shelf. Number 3, holiday promotions, and why? Did you know that 70% of consumer spending in the US happens around Christmas? So think about that. You need to have holiday promotions, and that also applies to your packaging. And a marketing budget. Ben said earlier today that 20% for crowdfunding. In retail, you're looking at a benchmark of around 10% for retail. Number 4, and I think, being in Taiwan and being in Shenzhen, most people kind of have the service providers or have people and resources to really put this together. Now, if we go back to this slide and talk about holiday promotions, retailers cannot afford to lose one day without your product on the shelf. Because again, 70% of consumer spending happens offline, right? And they happen 90% happens offline, 70% happens during the Christmas holidays, right? And what that means is that if you promise your retailer that you're going to ship on December 21st, you better get it there on December 21st without compromising any of these pieces. And that's materials procurement, manufacturing, quality control, product certificates, packaging, warehousing, logistics, returns, and inventory management. Expect 10% of your products to return. That's the industry standard. And also your customer and maintenance service. I say maintenance because if you remember, 2-3 years ago, when drones were hot, no distributors wanted to take it because they didn't want to deal with maintenance, right? But when being one of the larger distributors, they put together a maintenance service, program in Seattle to help a lot of DJI products if they had issues. And number 5, are you a one-hit wonder? I try to be a little bit culturally sensitive here. If you're in Asia, we got a little Psy, all right? And if you're American, we got a little bit of Vanilla Ice. And over here, does anyone know who that is? Lou Bega, Mambo number 5. You don't hear about him because he was a one-hit wonder, all right? The reason why I bring this up is because if you think about introducing your product and your distributor, your retailer loves the product, they want to know what's next. They want to know what is in the product roadmap. And I love using MakeBlock as an example. MakeBlock introduces a new type of product every 6 months. And for a distributor retailer, they're going, yeah, that's nice. I can put more of your product and more of your branded product on the table and not just one product, right? So when you get into retail, you don't want to have just brand ABC and one product on the shelf. You want to have brand ABC and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of brand ABC, right? This is what a retailer would be looking for. Okay. Now, I've covered this on a very high level, but if you happen to want more details and you want to get a little bit more experience by talking to some of these startups, I have a group of startup friends that we share all these type of examples and case studies with each other on a Slack platform. It's called Hardware Shindig, if you're interested. But otherwise, feel free to contact me. My email is benwong@globalsources.com. I also have a Twitter account that I share what's going on in the hardware space. And if you're interested, if you get to a certain point as a hardware startup where you're going, I really need to join a trade show to access distribution at retail, definitely check us out at www.launchpadhk.com. Thank you.